Hey, I'm the Wolfman. Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really cool tool. This is a primitive hammer. Now it's not really a tomahawk, it's not designed for killing people or anything like that, but it's a piece of your human history. Anyone, no matter where you are in the world, your ancestors would have used tools just like this. It's a stick with some sinew from a recent hunt and a nice small rock. They would have walked all along the lake shores to find this. They would have spent an entire day making this because this helped us survive. Now, in order to create this project, I consulted with a really cool guy named Skeet from Sticks and Stones Wilderness School. Now, I'm going to put his YouTube URL right there, and you can take a look. He's got some videos and some courses. Really cool cat. I definitely would recommend you take a look at him. But this is a really amazing project to do. It really connects you to your human history, to holding this, thinking this was a tool of humanity before we even created shoes, before we created cities, cars, the internet, anything like that. Our entire human history right here in one tool. This is a really great tool. You can use it for all sorts of different things. If you're into flint knapping, you can knap it, make it sharp, all sorts of great things. So let's go ahead here, get started on the project. So before we begin any of this project, let's take a look at the tools that we're going to need to make sure this project is a success. One of the most important things you're going to need for this project is your handle. Now this is just a nice piece of stick I cut off a small live tree. It's really important to use a live tree and not deadfall for this, because you want to make sure that when it's cut you're going to have green wood and that it's going to be really nice and flexible for you. The next thing that you're going to need is a rock. This rock is as thin as I could find, and it has a nice shape, so it actually kind of looks a little bit like an axe head shape, right? That's going to be really useful for us. You're going to need a good knife because we're going to need to put a big split in that wood. You're going to need some leather strapping. Now I just got this at a local leather supply store and then just split it up myself, or you can buy it sometimes already split, and I just wrapped it around a spool. Nice and thin. You want a good quality leather, but it doesn't have to be expensive. Next thing you're going to need is a little bit of salt. What we're going to do is we're going to pour some of the salt into our water here. The reason we want to do that is the brine solution is actually going to help the leather. First thing it's going to do is make sure that the leather doesn't absorb too much water. The other thing it's going to do, once it's actually soaking in the leather and the water is very, very hot, it's going to make sure that when you pull it out and you wrap it, you're going to get a little bit more stretch out of the leather, and then the salt is actually going to dry the leather and ensure that it contracts properly around your project. So this is it. As most primitive things, not a whole lot of tools and equipment needed. So let's go ahead and get started. So taking my stick, I want to have a quick look at it here. I want to take a look at the grain. I want to see if I can find the grain in it. If I can find any little cracks or dings in it that's actually going to help me along in my split. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my knife. I'm going to put it right on top, just like this. I'm going to take another larger stick, give it a whack. Now what that's going to do is open that stick up just like this. You can see that goes in for my end result, which will be to stick this inside it. The next thing I'm going to need to do is get some water heated up, get that leather in it, get ready for my wrap. Now because this wood is still green, and if we look inside, you might actually be able to see that it is actually a little bit green inside there. You're going to get the maximum amount of flexibility. If I were to use a piece of old deadfall on this, when I put my knife into it, it's going to split. It's going to split all the way down, probably to the knot, and then the project won't be quite as effective. So using some green wood is going to give you a little bit more flexibility in the project. Now that we have our stick cut, the next thing we want to do is get our leather in there. And again, you can sometimes buy this stuff at a local leather shop. You can also make it yourself, which is what I prefer to do. That way you know exactly what kind of leather you're getting. So I just take my leather, I'm going to coil it up, and I'm just going to drop it in the water. Again, you don't have to bring this to a boil. All you want to do is just make sure that it is completely submerged in the water and that there's a little bit of salt content in there. So while my water is boiling here, the next thing I'm going to do is set the rock. As you can see, I've got my knife in here, and it's a pretty simple process. I just take my rock and decide the thinnest edge of it, and then I'm just going to push it down just like this. Just like that. Now as soon as I get it started, I'm just going to pull my knife out, just like that. and I'm just going to use my fingers and I'm just going to push it down. Now you have to be really gentle with this process, otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to break your piece of wood right down to the end. You might even hear it cracking just a little as you start to push it through, but be really gentle, nice and slow. There's no hurry for this. Get it on in there. Now what I always like to do is make sure that once it's been set, that you have a little tiny bit of space at the top. The reason that I want this is so that I can actually put a couple of rounds of leather right here at the top and try to pinch that together. So when it's pinched together at the top, it can be pinched together at the bottom, and I'm going to have a really nice, good driving fit to that. So there we go. That's set. Next step that I need to do is wrap this in leather. The project's almost completed. The next stage in the project, wrapping the leather, all I do is I take my leather out of its stuff here, and I'm going to stretch it all out. There we go. Now as soon as I get it out, I'll notice it's really flexible. The danger here is that if I flex it too much, of course, it's going to break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by putting my leather in an upright position, just like this. The reason we want to start with it upright is so that when I wrap, it's going to become invisible. So now, as you can see, I'm going to give it a bit of a pull, and we're going to take it and wrap it around just like this. And now you'll notice right away when I move my hand, you've got it starting to cover up all of the spots. Just like this. There we go. Now you see how when I move this, see how that starts to cover it up? That's going to give you a nicer looking finish on it. Now, wetting the leather and stretching it out as we weave it, what's going to end up happening is it's going to go way tighter than anything you or I could ever pull together by just using rope and glue or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead here, continue to wrap this up. We have our bottom wrap. We're going to take some more of this leather twine here, and we're going to wrap the top. Again, you're going to give it a little bit of a pull as you come around like that. Keep a little bit of pressure on it. The reason we want to do that is so that when it dries up, it'll dry up nice and tight. You won't have any trouble with it. Fold that over just like that. Now when using two different types of leather rope, because you run out of this one, just gives it a bit more of a rugged look. Now that I have that all done at the top, there's a few different things that I can do. I can do what we call cinching, which is when I'm going to take this around the top like this, and I'm just going to feed it through. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to feed that through that rock right there. It's going to come out here, and then I'm just going to pull it tight. And you see, when I pull that tight, it's going to pull everything nice and snug for me. I can cinch that around 2 or 3 times, depending on how much I've got. 3 times is ideal. And again, I'm going to push this through between the rock and the space that I created, and it should eventually just pop out right here. Pull that right out. And continue on around. There's number 2. And then I'm going to cinch it on this side next, so I'm going to do the same thing. Hold it with the finger. Take this piece here, just shove it on through. Eventually, it's going to come out on the other side. Give it a pull. Whoop. You see, you actually saw the rock move a little there. It tightens it right up. And there we have it. So now, we've got a little bit of cinching here at the top. Pull this nice and tight. You've got this down at the bottom, keeping it tight. I'm just going to tie this off, and the project's done. So there we have it. You have your primitive tomahawk made by a stick right here, a stone, some leather strapping. That's got a bit of weight to it because I chose a really nice stone. This stone actually is kind of tomahawk shape. If you're into flint knapping or anything like that, you could knap the edge and make that really, really razor sharp. No problem there. If you happen to make this project, please upload this as like a video response to my video, because I'd really be interested in seeing what you've done. Now, I've done this project before at youth camps with children ages 12 and up. Just make sure, of course, when it's done that they're not hitting themselves in the head with it, anything strange like that. But this is really on there. It's only been on here a few minutes. Good and snug. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. I'm the Wolfman. Please consider subscribing.